Hello and welcome to Yes, You Are Brave. This is a podcast where we're going to set off on a journey together to find and build our brave, where we explore all the ways that you have been brave and all the ways that you can be brave again. Because even though we may have forgotten or we may have fallen out of practice, we're all brave. And I'm on a mission to prove it and help you believe that yes, you are brave. All right. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Yes, You Are Brave. I'm Pawnee, your host. Let's jump in. Let's talk brave. So this week I wanted to talk about some life lessons about remodeling. And I had this idea because my husband and I have been remodeling our house the last couple of months. And just thinking about the things that I have learned in this process. It is a process and I've learned a lot of things and I wanted to share a few of them with you. And I was going to do this whole thing where I was going to give you the lesson specifically as it related to remodeling a home. And then I was going to compare it to remodeling in your life or rebuilding your life. But I decided that that's going to just be too long. So we're just going to go with lessons from remodeling. And I would love if you have time to see if you can apply that to your life as well, especially if you've had something big happen and you feel like you need to rebuild yourself. How can these apply to rebuilding yourself as well as rebuilding a house? So let's jump right in. I got 12 things that I want to talk to you about, lessons and insights about rebuilding or remodeling. So first of all, I want to say, is that you're going to have to say goodbye to your comfort zone. And what I mean by this is it is not comfortable to remodel. First of all, because it's change and change is not usually comfortable, even though the result is usually good and we like the end result. The process is not always fun. Very rarely fun. So you're going to have to say goodbye to your comfort zone. Also, if you're going to do it yourself, which this is kind of a DIY thing. I've not really worked with contractors that much. But if you're going to do it yourself, you're going to have to learn things. You're going to have to grow. And it's not always going to be super fun, right? I have also learned so many things in the past couple months, done things that I never anticipated. My husband's had to be very patient and teach me how to do things. But my comfort zone is now completely... The comfort zone I had 3 months ago and the one I have now are completely different. So you're going to have to say goodbye to your comfort zone. Number 2, there will be messes. There will be so many messes. And you will get sick and tired of cleaning up messes. But that again is also just part of the process and part of the changing. So there will be messes. And part of the getting rid of your comfort zone is going to be, you're going to have to also live in the mess, right? One of the most difficult things about remodeling a home is that most of the time, at least for me and for a lot of us, you can't just move out and remodel and then move back in when it's done and nice and pretty and shiny. Most of us can't do that. So we've been living with some degree of mess for the last 3 months. And so there's going to be messes and there's going to be more messes and there's going to be other messes and some messes you plan for and some that you do not. And you're just going to be constantly cleaning up messes. But it is part of the process and it does eventually end. At least that is my hope. We're not quite there yet, but that's going to be the part. Also, when you're rebuilding anything, like I said, your life, it's going to be messy. The next thing, number 3, and this is one of the most important things I feel like that I have learned from this is I want you to remodel for you, not for somebody else. When we were talking about remodeling and we were just barely floating the idea and just maybe gonna set dates for getting started, I started looking up some things, right? Started doing some research because I had never really done it before. I mean, I had lived through remodeling my houses when I was a teenager, but I wasn't really a part of the decisions or anything like that. So I started looking into it. And one of the things that they said that a lot of people regret after a remodel is they build their house or they redo their house for a resale value, right? They move into a house. They're not necessarily planning on living in it for a really long time, but they do all of the things to their house based on what they think somebody else is going to like. And then a lot of times what ends up happening is people end up staying in that house for a long time, and then they hate it. They don't like the house. They don't like what they've done with it. And then I've also seen quite a few different things lately because, of course, the algorithm, right? Because of the algorithm, I've seen a lot of things of like remodeling and different things people have done with their homes because I've been looking at all that stuff. And I've seen quite a few people, they're like, oh yeah, well, like I did it this way because they said not to do it this way or whatever, but then they hated it. And so then they redid it. They had to redo it. And it was, they redid it to what they liked. So one of the things I want you to make sure it's your own, your home, your space should be happy and should feel safe for you. And it doesn't have to be for somebody else. That's the thing that I think is so important is your home is your space. You remodel for you. Now, if you were moving into a house and you wanted it move-in ready, all those things, that's a completely different scenario. And in different situations, that's totally fine. But if you're redoing a house that you already have and you know you're going to be living in for a while, redo it for you. Make it happy for you. That is one of the biggest things. Those three things, if you stop now, that would be fine. But make sure you're doing it for you. Make sure it makes you happy, that you like it. It doesn't matter if other people don't get it. Make it happy for you. The next thing, number 4, is that it is going to cost you. Now, that may be a couple of things. It's either going to cost you time or it's going to cost you money. Sometimes it's both. Now, my husband has worked in construction for the last 20 years. He has all of the knowledge, all those things. So we're doing a lot of it ourselves. But that means that we are saving money, yes, but it has taken us a lot of time. Case in point, I literally have spent 8 hours the last 2 days stripping cabinets. Actually, just stripping the doors and the drawers from our cabinets. So it's going to cost you time and it's going to cost you money. My husband and I decided not to get new cabinets because ours were in pretty good shape and we wanted to save money. And we did. We saved a lot of money on cabinets, but we've spent a lot of time getting our old cabinets into shape to be able to be repainted and reused. So it's either going to cost you time or it's going to cost you money. That is just the kind of the way it goes. It's going to be money, lots of money or lots of effort. Sometimes both. The next thing, I think we're on 5, is you never really know what you're dealing with until you open it up. The part of our house that we are remodeling was built in the 40s, and we knew some of the things we were going to find. We did. But then when we started really getting into it, there were some surprises. We knew there was a little bit of termite damage from a few things, but we got into once we took off the flooring, we realized that there was more termite damage. And so because of that termite damage, some of the floor was not as supported as it needed to be, those type of things. So you never really know what's going to be there until you actually open it up and you start doing it. And that leads me into the next point of number 6, is that it's always better and also frustrating to take the time to fix what you find. And I mean, really fix it. Like I said, there are things you cannot predict. You cannot plan for. Like I said, sometimes you know pretty much what you're going to find. Other times you do not know what you're going to find, and you're going to have to be okay with having to fix it, stop and fix it. That usually means more time, and it usually means a little bit more money. But there are going to be things that you can't anticipate, and it's going to mess up your plans. One, for example, we had to take off the walls in our front room that had plaster and those little tiny boards, and it was horrible. And we were just going to leave this one wall, starting at a certain place. We were just going to leave the plaster below the cabinets. But we took the lower cabinets off because we had to redo them and we had to reshuffle them around. And all the plaster was falling off the wall. We had to take it off. We also had some problems, like I said, with the flooring. We had to fix them. It was so frustrating for my husband to be like, I think we really need to take a day and fix this. And I wanted to be like, no, it's just going to set us back. But it's what needs to be done. So it's always going to be, so you're never going to really know what you're going to find until you open things up and you really start digging, really start looking. And then it's always going to be better to fix them, like really fix them. In the long run, it's going to be so much better. Number 7, I think that's the number we're on. Number 7 is that you need the right tools for the job. And sometimes those right tools are other people. So like I said, my husband works in construction. He's a handyman. He's got a contractor's license. He does all of these things. He knows how to do them all. But there were still things in our remodel that we needed other people for. Sometimes you need you need the right tools for the right job. And my husband had a lot of the right tools. And I'm going to be perfectly honest, because I've not worked in a lot of those things, I had no idea there were so many tools and what they were all for. My husband has like 9 tools just for cutting things. Okay? They're all for different situations, for different things, but there's like 9 tools for cutting things. And so he uses all these different tools for different things. And if you have the right tools, it's going to go so much easier and so much better. Also, sometimes you need the tool to be another person. And I don't mean that like using people as tools, but sometimes you need resources beyond your tools. So because one of the things we needed to do was replace some 80-year-old wiring. It was going to be a lot. And so my husband's brother is an electrician. And so we had him come out and he helped us because we didn't just have to like run a few new wires. We had to get a new meter. We had to get a new power box. It was a whole upgrade thing. And so my husband's brother came in and he helped us with that. Sometimes you need other people's expertise, and that's okay. We also had to, my husband also got advice from our neighbor who makes cabinets, because we were reusing our cabinets and this guy does cabinets. And so he has helped us he built a few little extra cabinets for us, and has kind of consulted with my husband on how to make this work. So you need the right tools, and sometimes that's other people. The next thing, number 8, is there are going to be so many decisions. And decisions on things that you had no idea, or maybe you just never think about somebody having to actually decide those type of things. Now, when we started talking about this, I thought I'm terrible at decisions. Let's be honest. I'm not a super decisive person. It's never been a huge strong point of mine. So I decided, okay, I'm going to start looking at these things, start maybe, making decisions, trying to make decisions, narrow it down, whatever, before we started. And I was so proud of myself because I thought I had all these decisions made. And then there were decisions I had no idea I was going to have to make, right? Like I made the big ones, like this is going to be the color of the new cabinets, and this is going to be the color of the walls, and this is going to be the color of, I picked out my countertops, and it was amazing. And then there were decisions like my husband was like, okay, do you want square plugs or round plugs? What kind of light switches do you want? How do you want the corners of things done? It was decisions I had no idea I was going to have to make. But you have to make so many decisions. And so just be prepared for that. Like there's so many decisions in a remodel. Some of them are big and huge. And yeah, those are the fun ones to make, right? Like, ooh, let me pick out my colors and let me pick out this. And then there are little tedious ones like that are important, but also things you don't think about. Like my husband's like, how far apart do we want these shelves in the pantry that I'm building you? Things like that. So many decisions. And some of those decisions you're going to have to make more than once. And that sounds weird. For example, flooring. We decided we knew we wanted a certain color. We went to the store. We talked to them about different things. And one of the flooring stores here in town, they're like, oh, here, yeah, take the samples home, put them in your home so you can see your lighting, blah, 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 blah. Decide. So we brought, I think, 4 of them home. And we laid them all out. We played with the lighting. This one we didn't like for that. We narrowed it down. I decided on some flooring. We went back to order it. I was so excited. Well, because of the whole thing with the tariffs, that one was out of stock. And it wasn't going to come back in stock for like till the middle of the summer. And it was just like, also it was going to be more expensive than we had originally thought. It was just like, no, you got to be freaking kidding me. So then we ended up having to decide on flooring again. So some of your decisions you're going to have to make more than once. Also, that kind of happened with countertops and colors, but I won't go into all of that. So sometimes the decisions, you're going to have to make lots of them, lots of big ones, lots of little ones, and some of them you're going to have to make more than once. Number 9 is perfection is an illusion. Okay? It does not exist. It's just an illusion. And especially if you're in an old house, okay? One of the things my husband and I decided early on is because we have this old house, nothing is ever going to be completely perfect, right? And one of the things that has been a big, huge thing, we just got countertops this week. And my husband spent so much time trying to get the cabinets level, right? They said, okay, it has to be within this much, and it's not a very big margin of error. All these things, he spent so much time getting those level. And when they left on Monday, after putting in our countertops, we went in and they looked perfect. They looked beautiful. It was just amazing. Well, then my husband was like looking around, right? And he talked to the guy actually as they were leaving. He's like, so the counters were okay? He's like, the guy's like, yeah, it was totally within what they call acceptable margins, right? But it looked perfect. Well, my husband was being, who he is. He was looking around and he was looking underneath, and there was this one part where on one side of the counter underneath, it was flush against the counter. And then by the time you got to the end of the counter, there was like an 1/8 of an inch of caulking, right? So he's like, wait a minute, I thought this part was actually level. Well, our countertops aren't 100% level. And the reason I'm sure that they had to do that was because we did this big U-shaped. And in order for it to look perfect, in order for that seam to be perfect, it had to be slightly not level right there. And so perfection is just an illusion. It doesn't actually happen. Don't fight so hard for perfection. It's not really there. It doesn't really work. The next thing, number 10, is to trust the process. And I know that this is one of those things everybody says. So trust the process. And people say this, and it sometimes is not fun. Right? It's not super fun when people say trust the process. We don't like it. It's not our favorite. But sometimes you really do have to trust the process. There were so many times in this whole thing where I was just like, my husband would tell me we needed to do something, and I knew that he knew what he was talking about, but it was just, I didn't quite understand it. And it was frustrating. And also sometimes things they don't look how they're going to when you first start. The paint for my cabinets was ugly when my husband started painting. Every time my husband started painting the cabinets, I was like, oh my gosh, that is not the color I wanted. It's ugly. But then it would dry and it was so pretty. So sometimes the paint's going to be ugly when it's wet. But when you trust the process, it's going to end up really pretty. It's going to end up really nice. Also, it's going to be messy in the middle, and you have to trust the process. And sometimes you have to make it worse before it gets better. And that brings me to number 11 of sometimes the order is not going to make sense, and it's going to seem really ridiculous, and it's going to seem overwhelming. But sometimes the little bit of inconvenience makes the whole process better. So for example, like sometimes the order of just doing things seems like it doesn't make as much sense and you like to just plow ahead, but sometimes taking things a little bit slower to make sure that it is easier in the long run. Couple little examples is when we were doing our demo, our walls had plaster, which is basically like a really light concrete over little tiny slats. And the first wall that we did, my husband was just banging on and you were just with a hammer and pulling off the slats and the plaster at the same time. Well, that was fine, except when we had to clean it up and haul it all out in buckets, it took forever because you had to dig through and get the slats, and then you had to scoop up the plaster, and it took twice as long. So then we started knocking off all of the plaster and then pulling off the slats. Also, my husband, we still don't have flooring in because he's waiting until we're done completely with all of the painting so that we don't have to clean up paint from the flooring. He wanted to paint the upper cabinets before we got countertops, which he did. He pushed last weekend. We got it painted. So there's just so that we didn't have to be as careful. We still could have done it, but sometimes just waiting, making sure the order, it actually can be really, really helpful. And number 12, this project is going to stop being fun before it gets done. And it just is. It's funny because when I started talking about this project, started telling people that it was, we were remodeling our house. It was fun. It was fun. It was exciting. We could see progress. Because there's going to be parts of it where you're not going to be making a whole lot of visible progress. Like, yeah, at first there's lots of visible progress. The wall comes down, the insulation goes in, the drywall goes up, the paint goes on. It looks like there's lots of progress, and there is. And then the progress starts to look slower, and it starts to be more tedious. And you spend a week leveling cabinets, and you spend, it stops being fun. It loses its shiny. But you have to just keep going because nobody wants a half-done kitchen, right? I would have loved to have stopped a month ago, but my kitchen isn't done, so we're going to keep going. But just remember that the end result is going to be worth all of the work. Like I said, this week we got countertops in and a new sink that doesn't have to be taken out every weekend. It's amazing. It looks like a kitchen now. Now I'm so much more motivated to keep going because it's like, oh yeah, no, like now I need everything else to match my beautiful countertops and cabinets. So look for those little milestones when it stops being fun, when it stops being shiny, and it is going to be worth it. Remember that like the end goal is going to be so worth it. But at some point you're going to lose motivation for this. And it's just going to be, you're going to be working on it because you want it done, not because it's fun or you love it anymore. And that's fine. That is totally fine. So that is what I have for you. Some lessons that I have learned in this remodel. And eventually, I hold on to the hope that eventually I'm not going to have to clean up messes after messes after messes. Eventually, I'm just going to I get to be able to just do my normal cleaning. And that is what I'm looking forward to. And you can too. So when you're rebuilding, most importantly, make sure that you are doing it for you and realize that your comfort zone is going to go out the window. Remember, you are wonderful. You are amazing. You're brave. Don't be afraid to remodel. Don't be afraid to take out walls. Don't be afraid to change colors. Because being brave is often making those changes that make you happy that other people don't understand. But don't be afraid to build your big, beautiful, brave life, however that looks for you. I love you. You're amazing. You're wonderful. You're awesome. And yes, you are brave. Have a good day.
Thanks for listening. And if you enjoyed what you've heard today, please leave a review down below and share this with anyone that you feel like could use a little more brave in their life. And if you'd like to follow more of my journey to be brave, You can follow me on social media and link down below. Have a fantastic day and don't forget to be brave.